And they're called Kate-spiracies now, and there's so many of them. They're really wild. I don't know if you've heard the latest one, but it's that.
This is insane. King Charles is now going to war. So is Queen Camilla. Going to war with Catherine?
The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present.
Out Kate's video behind the scenes. Did she write that herself?
Yeah, she did. She wrote every word herself, and apparently she turned that speech around really quickly. Everyone wants a bit of this story, and I think it's probably because Kate's always been popular. You look at the polls, and she is always...
We are in a time where everybody thinks that they deserve an answer to the questions that are none of their business.
Yeah.
You're famous, and you're doing something.
Cancer doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care about the colour of your skin. It doesn't care whether you...
Poses the next question, William and Harry. Can there be any reconciliation between the brothers?
I think the biggest takeaway for me, I think really, is just that sense of lacklustre response to...
Has Camilla or her people ever come to you and said, right, let me tell you this about Harry and Meghan?
Have Penguin got their dollars worth out of Prince Harry? Absolutely. I mean, jaws really are on the ground.
The Princess of Wales has announced her first foreign trip in almost 4 years. We've got all the details.
She stepped out today, marking her return to official duties with Prince William, sporting blonde hair, or blonde as it's being called.
But I was told that, the palace, who usually are pretty unhelpful with things like...
I think the real anchors in her life are her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, and her brother James, who's had his own battles with his mental health.
Katie Nicholl just dropped a revelation that changes everything we thought we knew about Catherine's early years in the royal spotlight, and it's not what you'd expect. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. Before Catherine became the poised Princess of Wales the world admires today, Queen Elizabeth had serious doubts, not about her character, not about her suitability for William, about something far more uncomfortable, something palace insiders referred to in hushed tones as the Kate problem. And the Queen wasn't subtle about it, according to Katie Nicholl's reporting in William and Harry. Behind the palace walls, Elizabeth confided in trusted friends that she had no idea what Kate actually did. Those weren't passing remarks. They were concerns shared repeatedly with her inner circle. A senior royal aide told the Mail on Sunday that the Queen had conversations, plural, about how to tackle what was being called the Kate problem. That phrasing alone tells you everything. This wasn't idle gossip. This was a palace-level issue. So what was the problem? Kate wasn't working. She wasn't building a career. And to Elizabeth, that mattered more than most people realized. Between 2007 and 2010, Kate was constantly in the press. She was photographed leaving her Chelsea flat, shopping on the King's Road, at Mahiki nightclub, on luxury holidays in Mustique, so often that the press dubbed her Queen of Mystique, a title that had once belonged to Princess Margaret. From the outside, it looked like the life of a young woman in love, waiting for her prince. From inside the palace, it looked like something else entirely. Frivolous displays of wealth. That's how Nicholl described the Queen's view. Elizabeth found the optics unpalatable. And for a monarch who spent her entire reign embodying duty, service, and restraint, watching the future consort of the heir to the throne gallivanting on Caribbean beaches while unemployed wasn't just poor optics. It was a values clash. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The Queen believed Kate was a nice enough girl, but nice wasn't enough. Elizabeth wanted substance. She wanted proof that Kate understood what royal life actually required. And more than that, she wanted William to wait. The Queen believed an announcement should be postponed until Kate was settled in a career, not a hobby, not volunteer work, a proper job. Those were the words Nicholl attributes to palace insiders. A proper job. Because in Elizabeth's mind, if Kate was going to be William's consort one day, if she was going to stand beside the future king, she needed to prove she could commit to something beyond William himself. That's not a romantic idea. It's a brutal one. But it's also revealing. Elizabeth wasn't questioning whether Kate loved William. She was questioning whether Kate understood what being royal actually meant, and whether she had the discipline to see it through. And this is where the story takes a turn most people miss. Kate's unemployment wasn't accidental. After graduating from St. Andrews in 2005, she briefly worked for her parents' company, Party Pieces. She also worked as an accessories buyer for the fashion brand Jigsaw. Both roles were part-time, both were low profile, and both ended quietly. By 2007, Kate had effectively stopped working altogether. She attended royal events with William, she was photographed constantly. But professionally, she disappeared. Some royal commentators have suggested Kate stopped working because the media attention made it impossible. Every time she left for work, paparazzi followed. Her employers became part of the story. The disruption was too much. But others pointed out something less flattering. Kate had access to wealth through her family. She had proximity to William. And she had no financial pressure to work. So she didn't. That's when the whispers started. Weighty Katie. The nickname was cruel, but it stuck. And it captured exactly what the Queen was worried about. A woman waiting for a ring instead of building a life. The thing is, Elizabeth had a reason to worry, and it wasn't just about Kate. It was about the pattern she'd seen play out before. The Queen had watched her sister Margaret struggle with purpose after her royal duties became ceremonial. Margaret's life became a cautionary tale, glamorous on the surface, hollow underneath. Elizabeth had watched Diana wrestle with identity after her. Marriage collapsed. Diana entered the royal family at 19 with no career, no foundation, no sense of self outside her relationship with Charles. When that relationship crumbled, she had nothing to fall back on. Elizabeth had watched Sarah Ferguson spiral after her divorce. Fergie threw herself into commercial ventures that embarrassed the family precisely because she'd never developed professional credibility before entering royal life. The Queen learned something from all of that. Royal women needed more than love. They needed purpose that existed independently of their husbands. They needed work that gave them identity beyond their titles. And when she looked at Kate in 2007, 2008, 2009, she didn't see that foundation. She saw a young woman whose entire life revolved around waiting for William to propose. That's what the Kate problem really meant. It wasn't about Kate's personality. It wasn't about her middle-class background. It was about the fact that she had no independent identity, no professional anchor, no proof she could sustain commitment to something difficult when the cameras weren't watching. And Elizabeth wanted that proof before the engagement happened, not after. But here's what makes this story even more complex. The palace itself made Kate's situation worse. By 2007, Kate had become one of the most photographed women in Britain. Paparazzi camped outside her flat. They followed her to the gym. They tracked her every movement. Any employer who hired her became part of a media circus. Jigsaw tried to make it work, but the attention was relentless. Kate's presence turned the store into a spectacle. Customers came to gawk, not to shop. The business couldn't function normally. So Kate left. And after that, finding legitimate work became almost impossible. She couldn't take a corporate job without turning the office into a zoo. She couldn't work in retail or hospitality without creating chaos. She couldn't pursue anything public-facing without dragging her employer into the tabloid spotlight. The palace could have helped. They could have issued statements protecting her privacy. They could have provided security that created distance from the paparazzi. They could have brokered opportunities with organizations willing to accommodate the unique pressures. But they didn't. Not really. Because Kate wasn't royal yet. She had no official status. And the palace doesn't protect girlfriends, even girlfriends of future kings. So Kate was caught in an impossible bind, expected to work by the Queen, unable to work because of the media attention that came from dating William, and blamed for being unemployed even though the situation was largely beyond her control. That's the part of the Kate problem no one wanted to acknowledge. The palace created the conditions that made Kate unemployable, then criticized her for not working, and the Queen, for all her wisdom, didn't seem to recognize that contradiction. Or maybe she did. Maybe that was part of the test. Could Kate find a way to contribute despite the obstacles? Could she carve out meaningful work even when the circumstances were stacked against her? If that was the test, Kate didn't pass it. Not during those years. She retreated instead. She spent time with her family. She traveled with William. She waited. And the Queen noticed. Here's what makes Elizabeth's position even more interesting. She wasn't demanding Kate build some high-powered career. She wasn't expecting her to become a CEO or a barrister. She just wanted evidence of commitment, evidence of follow-through, evidence that Kate could stick with something difficult even when it stopped being fun. A proper job didn't mean a prestigious job. It meant a real one, something with structure, accountability, and consistency. And Kate didn't have that. Not in 2009, not in early 2010, not when William started seriously considering proposing. That's when the Queen made her position clear. She wanted William to wait. Not indefinitely. Just long enough for Kate to establish something. Anything. But William didn't wait. And that decision reveals something about him, too. William had already lost his mother. He'd watched his father's marriage disintegrate. He'd seen what happened when royals married for duty instead of love. And he wasn't going to let anyone, not even his grandmother, dictate the timing of his engagement. So in October 2010, William took Kate to Kenya. They stayed at a remote cabin on the slopes of Mount Kenya. And there, away from the palace, away from the press, away from the Queen's concerns, William proposed. Kate said yes. The ring was Diana's sapphire. And just like that, the Kate problem became irrelevant. Or at least, it became something the palace would have to manage instead of prevent. The engagement was announced in November 2010. The wedding was set for April 2011. And the palace PR machine went into overdrive to reshape Kate's image. Suddenly, Kate's years of unemployment were reframed as preparation. She'd been quietly learning about royal life. She'd been supporting William through his military career. She'd been strengthening their relationship. The weighty Katie narrative was scrubbed. The Queen of Mustique photos were buried. The entire awkward period between 2007 and 2010 was rewritten as a necessary season of patience and growth. And maybe it was. Maybe those years did prepare Kate in ways a job never could. Maybe the Queen's concerns were overblown. Maybe love and commitment matter more than career credentials. But the fact remains, Elizabeth had doubts. Real doubts. Serious enough to voice them. Serious enough to push William to delay. Serious enough that palace insiders gave it a name. And those doubts didn't disappear just because William put a ring on Kate's finger. The real test came after the wedding. That's when Kate had to prove the Queen wrong. Or prove her right. And at first, it wasn't clear which way it would go. Kate's first year as Duchess of Cambridge was rocky. She carried out fewer engagements than any other working royal. She was criticized for being work-shy. The press started calling her Duchess Doolittle. The exact concerns the Queen had raised before the engagement were now playing out in public. But then something shifted. Kate found her focus. Early years development. The science of childhood brain development, the long-term impact of early intervention. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't headline-grabbing, but it was real, and it was hers. Kate started working with experts. She visited programs, she studied the research, and slowly she built something that had weight and credibility. By 2018, she'd launched her own initiative. By 2020, she'd commissioned the largest UK study on early childhood ever conducted. By 2021, she'd established the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood. This wasn't performative royal charity work. This was substantive, sustained, strategic. This was exactly the kind of professional identity Elizabeth had wanted Kate to develop before the wedding. And here's the painful irony. Kate only developed it because the pressure of being royal forced her to. The scrutiny, the criticism, the expectations, those were what catalyzed her transformation. Would Kate have become this version of herself if she'd married William in 2007? If the Queen hadn't voiced concerns? If the palace hadn't waited? We'll never know. But it's hard to argue with the results. The Kate who married William in 2011 was not the Kate who exists today. The woman standing beside William now has authority, presence, and professional credibility. She has work that matters beyond her title. She has impact that will outlast her time in the public eye. That's who the Queen wanted her to be from the beginning. And it only happened because Kate was pushed by circumstances, by criticism, by the weight of the role itself. So was Elizabeth right? Was the Kate problem a legitimate concern? Or was it an unfair judgment of a young woman caught in an impossible situation? The answer is probably both. The Queen was right that Kate needed more than love to survive royal life. She was right that professional purpose matters. She was right that commitment to something beyond your relationship is what sustains you when the relationship gets hard. But she was also asking Kate to prove something that couldn't be proven under the circumstances. Kate couldn't build a career while dating William. The media attention made it impossible. The palace's refusal to protect her made it worse. And ultimately, Kate proved herself the only way she could, by stepping into the role and growing into it. That's not the path Elizabeth would have chosen, but it worked. Today, Kate is everything the Queen hoped she would be. Committed, serious, purposeful. She's not just William's wife. She's not just a pretty face at royal events. She's a working royal with substance. And the fact that it took a decade of marriage to get there doesn't diminish the achievement. It just means the transformation happened on a different timeline than the Queen wanted. What do you think? Was the Queen right to push back? Or should she have trusted William's judgment from the start? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more revelations like this, subscribe to Royal Archives. There's always more to the story than what makes the headlines.